Now I finally got someone to publish it, so I should get to compete again. And it's like, this is another one of those Hugo Award things where I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So Editor Joseph here. Usually you don't see me until later in a video when I screw something up, but I kind of screwed up this whole video. As I was filming it, it was just supposed to be a review of everything nominated for the Hugo Awards in 1964. But then I started to realize that there's some like weird nominations in this year, and when you look at other years, you've got the same thing. And then with like the current controversy at the Hugo Awards, I just thought it was interesting that weird situations and things that aren't very good just go hand in hand with the Hugo Awards through all of the decades. I hope you enjoyed the video. Now let's get back to it. I figured out last year that I had inadvertently read almost everything that was nominated for the Hugo Awards in 1964. So I thought, well, let's go ahead and finish them. Because there's nothing better than arbitrary goals that you accidentally stumble into almost completing. Today, I just want to talk about all of them. I went ahead and read all of the novels and all of the novellas that were nominated for 1964, and I was kind of surprised by the results. And look at this boy. Man is very angry today. I woke him up from his nap. He's not pleased. Look at that. That is a very spicy pickle. So I'm going to let you down now. Bye, Court. So the 1964 Hugo Awards for Best Novel: Here Gather the Stars, also known as Way Station by Clifford D. Simic, Glory Road by Robert Heinlein, Witch World by Andre Norton, Dune World by Frank Herbert. And what this is all of the analog releases, like in the magazine, you put them together and it is Dune World, which is the same as the novel, and Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. Well, let's just start from the top. Way Station 1. And the reason why Way Station 1 is because it is a very good book. I mean, I had no idea who Clifford D. Simic was until I got into this project and saw that I had read 3 of the 5 books from 1964, and I had intended to read Witch World. So I thought, well, let's just go ahead and pick up Way Station if we ever find a copy. And like 3 days later, I was at my favorite used bookstore and I found a book club edition hardcover for like $6. So it was just perfect. I really enjoyed that book. I have a review about it on my channel. I'll link it in the description. And it's just a really, really interesting book. It's got a lot of themes that you see from around 1964 in science fiction, like telepathy and stuff like that. Its overall story is just fascinating. You have a Civil War vet, and this is in like the 30s or 40s. No, it's after that. Yeah, it's right at the beginning of the Cold War. And you've got this guy that's over 100 years old. And the reason why he has stayed the age he has stayed is he lives in this remote area of Wisconsin that I've been to, and holy crap, it is as beautiful in real life as it is in the book. The way Simic describes it is so good. He's just a farmer in this rural area, and he is given the job of guarding a way station. And what it is it's like a intergalactic fast travel point. And so he'll get these alien guests and he'll talk to them, and he kind of keeps everything written in a journal and stuff. And that's kind of where the story starts. I don't want to give too much away because it's a very tiny book. You can read it in one sitting. And I think that almost everyone out there would really enjoy it. Now, next on the list is Glory Road. And the book is terrible. I mean, it's not like Heinlein bad. It's like bad. I don't know why it's even on this list. I can probably find 5 other books that should have been on this list, but the Hugo Awards is a popularity contest. And sometimes they win by a vote. And it's like, oh, yeah, well, look, they made it on the list. They beat out something that's going to win tons of awards anywhere else in the world. The further I have dove into Hugo Award winners, the less credence I give to nominees and award winners, because there's some really bad books on some of these nomination lists. And then all the BS that just happened with the Hugo Awards, it's like really hard to take them seriously. But I'm taking them seriously enough to make a video about it. So what does that say about me? I talked about Glory Road in my Heinlein hater video. Just don't do it. Don't even Glory Road once. Witch World by Andre Norton. I didn't make a video about this, I don't think, but I probably should have. It's very good. It's portal fantasy where you've got this guy who, after World War II, he kind of like was on the run for something, and he just gets transported to this new world, and you find out later on that other people have been transported to this world too from his. And at first he's just confused about what's going on, and he's disoriented, and he's with this like very generic fantasy like kind of area where there's like magic and kings and castles and all that stuff. And then he meets like these bird dudes that have like laser guns or something, which is really weird. Like they're not birds, they're dudes with like headdresses that look like birds. Like on the cover of one of the old books, the dude looks like a parrot. I'll try and post it right here. The book is just really good, and he starts learning magic and there's all this interesting stuff. And then you find out about these people from like across the sea or something. One of the big fights in the book is a guy with magic abilities fighting a cybernetically enhanced guy on a submarine. And the cybernetically enhanced guy has like telepathic powers. So it's like a psychic fighting a magic user. And I didn't know that existed in the 1960s. Like, it's ridiculous. It's so cool. And there's a ton of Witchworld books. And, you know, Andre Norton is generally a good to great writer. So I didn't think I would go wrong with that book. And yeah, it wasn't wrong. It was great. I find it odd that Dune didn't win because Dune is very good. I find it even more odd that Dune got a second chance to enter the Hugo Awards. In 1966, it won, well, it tied with This Immortal by Roger Zelazny, which is one of my favorite books. And I just thought, is that fair? Like, could I just like repackage my book and put it into the Hugo Awards like a couple years later and be like, oh, well, yeah, it was a novel, but it was released in a magazine. And now I finally got someone to publish it. So I should get to compete again. And it's like, this is another one of those Hugo Award things where I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I'm glad that Dune eventually won the award, but why did it get a chance to enter for a second time? And of course, I'm just talking about Dune and its entries because it's freaking Dune. Like, you either love it or you don't. Dune is a pillar of the science fiction genre. So let's just move on. And then last is Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. I wasn't the biggest fan of Cat's Cradle. I read it in high school and I'm like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. And so I probably need to read it again. It's been a very long time since I've read any Vonnegut. A lot of it I loved, a lot of it I didn't really care. So I don't think it beats Dune. I don't think it beats Way Station. I also find it odd that he kept getting nominations when like he kind of poo-pooed being known as a science fiction writer, but you know, whatever. What are you going to do? Now, the short fiction was the biggest surprise for me. I don't read a lot of short fiction. And when I saw that I had read most of the novels, I was like, let's read the short fiction too. Let's see what that's about. And those are No Truce with Kings by Poul Anderson, Code 3 by Rick Raphael, A Rose for Ecclesiastes by Roger Zelazny, and Savage Pellucidar by Edgar Rice Burroughs. When I saw Edgar Rice Burroughs on here, I was like, wait a second. He's been dead for like 14 years at this point. Like, how is that fair? Rick Raphael, Roger Zelazny, Poul Anderson, literally anyone that didn't get nominated for the short story, like, they got bumped for a dude who's been dead for almost 2 decades. Like, that's ridiculous. I would be so upset if I like was nominated for a Hugo Award and then a dead dude won it. Not a recently dead dude, but a dude who had been dead for a long time. That is some BS. Also, that story is not very good. I don't even know why it was on here. But let's go back to the top. No Truce with Kings is the short story that won, and it is not good. I DNF'd it like halfway through. It is incredibly boring. And I mean like boring to the point that I read about 20% of it and then could not remember anything I had read. It wasn't like I was sleep deprived or anything, and it wasn't like I was in a reading rut. And I went back and read some of it again and kind of figured out what was going on and kind of worked my way through a little more. And I'm like, this story sucks. I love Poul Anderson. Like, The Broken Sword is one of my favorite books of all time. So it's not like I'm a Poul Anderson hater or I like don't understand. Code 3 is a very 1960s ass science fiction story. It is one of those like, what would happen if blah, blah, blah changed in this technology? And it's like, that is totally impractical, but I'm here for it. And the whole premise of Code 3 is there's these cops that get in these basically rocket-powered RVs because the interstate system now has cars that go 300 or 400 miles an hour. So they've had to change all these like safety things, and these cars are still incredibly dangerous. They're just as dangerous as cars were in the 60s, which anyone thinking, what if these dangerous ass cars people die in all the time could go 300 miles an hour? I think that would be better for everyone. So there's like these super wide highways, and it kind of works as like these cops are like shepherds of these like packs of cars that are traveling across the interstate. I do think it's pretty cool that I could get to my in-laws' house in 3 hours instead of 16, but I also don't like the idea of going 300 miles an hour on a highway with the same morons I drive with every day. And it's just really interesting. There's like snipping at each other and all these like 1960s witticisms, and they're like smoking while they're hanging out inside this big rocket powered RV with all this emergency equipment. And like the sassy doctor is always being harassed by one of the guys. He's always flirting with her. And it's like, all right, I mean, this is a really cool time capsule for the mid 60s, and the story's okay. I mean, I guess it's way better than no Truth for Kings, so got that going for it. But the ultimate travesty of this is that A Rose for Ecclesiastes did not win. A Rose for Ecclesiastes is fantastic. Like, Roger Zelazny is one of my favorite writers of all time, and A Rose for Ecclesiastes was the second thing I ever read from him, and I fell in love with it immediately. It is so beautiful, and it is just so gut-wrenchingly sad. I mean, it really does things to you. It's about a guy from Earth, and he's traveled to Mars, and there's this culture on Mars, and they're like a dying civilization, and they're humans, or humanoids. They can breed with humans. But anyways, there's this whole long story about it, and this guy is like a man's man, ultra competent, which is like the main character of every Zelazny story, which is fine. And you really start to like this guy. You really feel what he's feeling, and all these things happen in this story, and it is so beautiful the way he describes the landscape and the culture and just the social interactions. It really reminds me a lot of the kind of weird dichotomy in Lord of Light, where you have like this epic prose, and it's kind of written like the Bible or the Epic of Gilgamesh or something, followed by this like very 1960s dialogue of like, hey, can I bum a cigarette, and that kind of thing. And it's just such a fascinating blend of two completely different writing styles. And this is the same way. It really shows off Zelazny's skill as a writer, and I absolutely love it. And I am very annoyed that it didn't win. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand at all. And I think it's like that with a lot of awards, and I know a lot of people feel like that. But yeah, this project just came out of nowhere. I just happened to look up who won because I was just, I don't know, randomly looking at them like I always do, just browsing stupid crap on the internet, and just was like, oh, whoa, I've read 3 of the 5 nominations. Let's just read the rest, and let's throw the short stories in too. And it was a great experience. I don't know if I would do it with another year unless maybe 3 of the 5 books I've already read because I'm lazy, or they're just like something I really want to read. But this was a fun journey. Have any of you done anything like this? Like, just been like, hey, let's read every Hugo Award winner or every Nebula winner? Let me know in the comments. I have read like, I don't know, 15% of the Hugo winners and like 10% of the Nebula winners, which doesn't sound like a lot, but then you remember both of those are like 70 years old. So there's quite a few books in that. I just thought that it was interesting that I read all of those. I just wanted to share them with you. It's like a big review of like the most popular SFF books from 1964, and just kind of the fact that the Hugo Awards has been a little dumb always. A guy that's been dead for 14 years got nominated. A book got nominated, even though it wasn't a book. It was a collection of chunks of a book in magazines that was kind of put together and called a book, and it didn't win. So somehow it got to, be entered again 2 years later, which I'm not hating on Frank Herbert. He deserves all the accolades he gets. I just find it very strange, and I'd be very salty if that happened when I entered, even though, I don't complete anything I write. So it's not like I'll ever get nominated. This was a wild ride, and I hope you enjoyed going on it with me, and let me know in the comments if you've read any of these and your thoughts. Let me know if you were somehow at the convention in 1964 and saw the shenanigans that went on with voting, if there were any. Thanks for watching, and with that, I'll see you next time.